In this After Effects tutorial, we're going to create a flare twist. Hey, what's going on internet? Josh Noel from SonduckFilm, and we got a great tutorial today. And you know, it's funny because ever since I moved my preview to the beginning of my tutorials, like at the first few seconds of my video, I have like nothing intelligent to say other than saying it's a great tutorial. So here we are. We have a composition here. We have some text, we have a logo, and you know, a couple of background elements. I'll briefly talk about the background elements at the end of this tutorial. Not really vital to what we're doing. So this was a requested tutorial. There's already a template out there that has this little flare twisty sort of thing, but I wanted to just go ahead and recreate it and show you guys how it can be done. So once you have, say, your text in here and maybe a logo, you can put whatever you want. Once you have that in there, what I suggest doing, make sure everything is selected except for the background layers, and go up to Layer, Pre-Compose, and then we can call this Placeholder. And this way, if you ever want to change any of the elements later, we can just go into this like composition and just change it out later without affecting any of the animation, which is, I think, important. So as you can see, we go in here, boom, it's all by itself, isolated, good. So now we need to start maybe adding that effect. So let's go up to Effect, Transition, and let's go to the card wipe effect. So I've already done a tutorial on the card wipe effect. I should have a card up here if you want to go ahead and watch it. But that goes more in depth about how to use this effect fully. So let's go here, and as you see, we have some columns. So what we need to do is maybe decrease the number of rows down to 1, and we want to increase the number of columns maybe up to like a higher amount, maybe like 40-ish. And then we want to go to the beginning of our timeline here, and let's set the transition completion down to 0%, and let's add a keyframe right there at 0 seconds. And then let's go to the end of our animation. Let's say the end of our animation is going to be around like 3 seconds. And then let's just go here and crank this all the way up to 100%. And if we select the layer down here and hit U on our keyboard, we'll see the keyframes here. And let's make the last keyframe, an easy as keyframe by hitting F9 on my keyboard. Now we have this, full animation here. It's going to do like this little nice, twisty thing. So let's go up to Effect, Transition, and let's add the linear wipe effect. And let's go and add a keyframe for transition completion. Let's set it to 100%. And let's set the angle wipe to -90 degrees. And then let's go to, like 3 seconds. And let's set the transition completion to 0%. So we scroll through here. We now have this nice little transition. Maybe we'll increase the feather of this to maybe like 10. And then select the layer again and hit U on our keyboard, bring the keyframes. And let's just move this linear wipe keyframe back a little bit, maybe to like 2 seconds almost. And this way, it'll still be flipping as it's already transitioned on, and I think that's important. Okay, so far we're looking good. And then, though, here's the thing. We only have one twist here, and we want to create another twist. So let's go and duplicate this card wipe effect by making sure it's selected and go up to Edit, Duplicate. And let's hit U on our keyboard, bring up the keyframes again. And let's select the keyframes for the second card wipe, and let's just offset it by like almost a second there. So this way I'll have a regular card wipe, and then it'll go and flip again. So you can continue to flip this all day if you want. Then let's go to Effect, Perspective, and let's add the drop shadow effect. And let's just kind of make this a little bit more, I guess more of a floor here. So let's increase the distance, by a little bit, maybe 400 points there. And let's set the direction to 180 degrees. And let's increase the softness, like crazy, maybe like 300 there. And maybe we can, adjust the opacity depending on what you want. We can, maybe put it like 60% almost. And this way, this drop shadow will kind of look like there's a floor going on there. And then let's go and duplicate the placeholder. And let's, come in here, close up the card wipes and linear wipes. Go to the drop shadow and let's select shadow only. And let's decrease the distance, so it's kind of like almost right underneath our logo there. And let's, decrease the softness. And that should be okay. And then let's make sure the layer is selected, and let's hit S on our keyboard to bring up the scale property. And let's break the link, and let's go to the Y scale coordinates there and kind of just decrease this to like maybe 30%. And then let's hit P on our keyboard to bring up position, and let's just bring this down by a little bit. And then maybe we'll increase the softness by a little bit more. And this way we'll kind of have like a double shadow. That was kind of like what was in the example. Okay, so next let's go up to Layer, New, Adjustment Layer. And let's go up to Effect, Blur, and let's add the camera lens blur. Where are you? Camera lens blur. And let's go to the maybe like, I don't know, like right halfway through the transition here. And let's add a keyframe for the blur radius, and let's set that down to 0. And then let's go back by like almost, a couple of frames here, and let's set the blur radius to about 17. And this way it'll kind of be blurred in once we get into this animation, and it'll kind of look cool. And make the last keyframe, an easy as keyframe by hitting F9 on your keyboard. And so far looking pretty good. So we basically have the entire effect in here, but now I want to go ahead and create that lens flare effect. So let's go up to Layer, New, Solid, and we just call this one Flare. And then let's go to Effect, Video Copilot, Optical Flares, and let's click on the options here. And I'm going to use a preset, and I'm going to go to the natural flares, and I'm going to use the gloss blue lens flare, and it takes a little bit of time for me to load up, but boom, here's our gloss blue lens flare, and I'm just going to go ahead and just set this to like a darker blue, and we'll click OK. But if you already have this plugin, you should already know how to use optical flares. So then let's go to transfer mode, and let's set this layer to add. And let me also turn off the camera lens blur for now. And then let's go here and position this where this flare needs to be. We need to figure out when our animation will first come on, which should be about right here. So let's go and position this lens flare to be right over the top of our first, beginning of our transition. And then let's add a keyframe for position XY. And then let's go ahead and scrub through this until the end of our animation, which is right here. And then we'll just position this lens flare all the way to the back end right over here. And basically that's all you have to do. And then let's go to the flicker properties real fast, and let's increase the speed and the amount. And then let's hit U on our keyboard to bring up the keyframes. Let's add a keyframe for the brightness. And let's also hit U again. And then let's bring that brightness keyframe just forward just by a little bit. And let's set the brightness down to 0. And then let's go to the last keyframe here, and let's add a keyframe for brightness, bring that keyframe forward a little bit, and then set the brightness down to 0 as well. So far, so good. Now let's make the last keyframe here an easy as keyframe by hitting F9 on our keyboard, and then we might need to come in here and just readjust some of the timing of the actual lens flare. So let's just make sure these back end keyframes are selected and just move them, in and out depending on where the transition is at. And we should be good right there. Boom. And then let's go ahead and maybe do one other thing, since this is kind of a twisty sort of effect. Let's add a keyframe for rotation offset, and let's go to the end of our animation here and maybe set the rotation offset to 2x. And this way it'll kind of almost like spin like that. Maybe that's a little too fast, but I don't know. I think it's fine. And then let's just go ahead and put this lens flare right underneath our adjustment layer, and we can turn that right back on. And then we can maybe talk about some of the background elements. So what I did was I added a 4-color gradient. That's under generate 4-color gradient, and I set it to a very neutral, like black, gray tone sort of colors here. And then all I did was keyframe the actual 4-color gradient points to kind of have like a slight animation, and I blended in like with my background by like 20% opacity. And for my background here, all I did was grab a gradient from the internet and add the tint effect and added the basic add grain effect as well under the effect noise and grain add grain. And if you want to be extra Hollywood-like, you can add a 235:1 aspect ratio to your scene here. So no, don't really do that. That's actually not cool. But let's go here and maybe just turn on motion blur for these layers and just for the placeholders, and we should be good to go. And if you've been following along with this tutorial, this is what you should have gotten, and I think it looks really clean. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more After Effects tutorials just like this. And please be sure to hit me up on my social media networks. Those links are in the description of this video. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope you have a good day.